Good morning from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room as we begin our coverage of the arrival shortly of NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, Deputy NASA Administrator Pam Melroy, and a distinguished bipartisan group of Texas congressional leaders, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Congressman Bruce Babin, Congressman Al Green, and Congressman Randy Weber, who will be here to tour the flight control room here in Mission Control shortly. And then we'll have an opportunity to talk to the Expedition 65 crew, all 7 crew members on board the station who have been working diligently throughout the course of the morning on scientific experiments and preparations by the 2 Russian cosmonauts on board, Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov, for a spacewalk tomorrow, expected to last about 7 hours, to begin the outfitting of the newly arrived Nauka multipurpose laboratory module. That conversation from here at the Flight Director Console in Mission Control is expected to begin at about 9:26 a.m. Central Time, 10:26 a.m. Eastern Time. This delegation should be arriving here in Mission Control shortly. The Administrator, Bill Nelson, the Deputy Administrator, Pam Melroy, and the congressional representatives, they are here for a series of briefings on the status of the International Space Station program, preparations to support the first flight of Orion beyond the moon to a distance of about 300,000 miles away from Earth on the Artemis 1 mission that is being prepared for launch on the new Space Launch System rocket from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. They're also receiving briefings on astronaut training and other elements, including the Gateway program that will establish a lunar outpost in the years to come. The entourage will be escorted into the flight control room by Norm Knight, who's the Director of Flight Operations here at the Johnson Space Center, Vanessa White, who is the Johnson Space Center Director, Steve Kerner, the Deputy Center Director here at Johnson, and others. Joel Montalbano, the ISS Program Manager, is here in the room, along with the Deputy ISS Program Manager, Dana Weigel. It's a very busy time. This has been a jam-packed several weeks of activity on board the station, most recently with the arrival of the SpaceX Cargo Dragon vehicle that docked to the International Space Station on Monday, carrying several tons of scientific experiments and supplies for the Expedition 65 crew that's led by Japanese astronaut Aki Hoshide, who's the commander of this expedition aboard the International Space Station. The crew that this entourage will be talking to today, from left to right: Russian cosmonaut Pyotr Dubrov, Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, the station commander, as we mentioned, Aki Hoshide, from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, Oleg Novitsky, who tomorrow will go outside the Poisk airlock with Dubrov for this 7-hour spacewalk to begin the outfitting of the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module, and on the far right, NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei. Between the Administrator, Bill Nelson, and the Deputy Administrator, Pam Melroy, no shortage of spaceflight experience in their own right. Nelson, of course, while a Florida congressman, flew aboard the shuttle Columbia in January of 1986 on the STS-61C mission for 6 days as he conducted scientific experiments as a payload specialist on that mission. Pam Melroy was the second female commander of a space shuttle. She logged more than 38 days in space on her 3 missions, serving first as a pilot on the STS-92 mission in 2000 and the STS-112 mission in 2002, and then commanded the STS-120 mission in 2007. On board the International Space Station, the crew earlier today worked their way through the continuing unloading of cargo from the SpaceX Cargo Dragon vehicle that arrived at the station on Monday. Most of the time-critical scientific experiments are up and running, collecting data for the month-long mission of Cargo Dragon at the International Outpost. Those experiments will be returned to Earth along with other critical hardware at the end of September. And as mentioned, the two Russian cosmonauts on board, Novitsky and Dubrov, have been conducting their final reviews of timelines and checking out hardware that they will take outside the Poisk airlock with them tomorrow morning for their spacewalk to begin the outfitting of the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module that launched to the International Space Station back on July 21st from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, arriving at the station where it automatically docked to the Russian segment of the complex on July 29th. Here in Mission Control, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers on console and ready to greet the delegation when they arrive here in the room a short time from now. Today's team is led by Flight Director Paul Kanya, wearing the dark jacket. To his right, facing the camera, is veteran astronaut Drew Morgan, who spent more than 270 days in space aboard the International Space Station, launching on July 20th, 2019 on a Soyuz rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on the 50th anniversary of the landing of Apollo 11 on the moon. Morgan, a veteran of 7 spacewalks, including the spacewalks in which he and Luca Parmitano repaired and serviced the alpha magnetic spectrometer. Once again, we're live here in Mission Control in Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, awaiting the arrival here in the room of a very distinguished group, including NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, and a congressional delegation representing the state of Texas, who will be talking to the crew on board the International Space Station shortly.
On 2, ready for scene and voice checks when you guys are.
Hey, good morning, Shane. We're ready. All right, Shane, yeah, we have good scene and good voice. We also wanted to offer up that BME TV is available for you for a zoomed-in view of the flight director console if you want to pull that up and turn that toward you guys so you can see what's going on that, our end.
The 7 crew members on board the International Space Station arrived in 2 different vehicles. Oleg Novitsky, Pyotr Dubrov, and Mark Vande Hei arriving on a Soyuz spacecraft. Back in April, this is their 147th day in space. A few weeks after they arrived, the Crew Dragon Endeavour, the SpaceX Crew Dragon, arrived at the station for a docking to the complex with Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Aki Hoshide, and Thomas Pesquet. For the Crew 2 crew, as they are called, this is their 133rd day in space. This is Mission Control in Houston. If you're just joining us, we are awaiting momentarily the arrival here in the Flight Control Room of NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, and 4 members of the Texas Congressional Delegation, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Congressman Bruce Babin, Congressman Al Green, and Congressman Randy Weber, bipartisan group of congressmen and women who are here with Nelson and Melroy to receive a series of briefings on current activities involving the International Space Station, the Artemis program, crew training, the Gateway program, and other associated activities that the Johnson Space Center is responsible for. They will be escorted into the room momentarily by Johnson Space Center Director Vanessa Weich, Deputy Center Director Steve Kerner, Norm Knight, the Director of Flight Operations here at the Johnson Space Center. And just a few minutes from now, they'll be at the Flight Director console, where Flight Director Paul Kanya is standing by, along with spacecraft communicator and veteran astronaut Drew Morgan, and we'll have a chance to talk to the 7 crew members on board the orbital outpost. This is Mission Control Houston, the delegation now entering the flight control room here. Drew Morgan greeting Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy and the Congress group, Congressman Bruce Babin, Randy Weber, and Al Green. Flight Director Paul Kanya on the right side of your screen. The Chief of the Flight Director Office, Holly Ridings, having the entourage posing for a few pictures. Johnson Space Center Director Vanessa Weich on the right, and to her left, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson in the center of your screen, along with Pam Melroy. There's Holly Ridings. Representative Al Green on the left. Spacecraft communicator Drew Morgan on the left of your screen, talking to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy as they prepare to call the crew on board the International Space Station. The 7 crew members led by Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Aki Hoshide. We're handing over communications between satellites on the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System. We'll be locking up momentarily, and we'll start the call to the crew from NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. We are ready for the event.
Station, please stand by for a voice check from NASA Administrator Bill Nelson.
Hey guys, this is Bill Nelson. Back over to you. How do you hear?
Mr. Administrator, we hear you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Well, it's a pleasure for Pam Melroy and me to be here today. We have a congressional delegation from the Houston area that is with us. Chairman Babin, Sheila Jackson-Lee, Congressman Weber, Congressman Al Green, and they are big supporters of NASA, which is extremely important to us. Also, I have someone that no doubt you're familiar with, our Deputy Administrator, Pam Melroy, one of your colleagues as a former astronaut commander, and we do not have with us today, he's back taking care of other things, Bob Cabana, another astronaut commander, and it is our great privilege to try to help lead NASA. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. It's great to have everybody at NASA. I know a lot of you have been there before, and we really appreciate your support, of course. We're having a great time up here. We're a little over, I think, 130 days into the mission now. The people up front here, a little longer than that, about 2 more weeks than we are, and having a great time together.
Pam tells me that you're growing some food. Tell me about that fresh food that you're growing.
Well, sir, we're very excited about it. We are growing some hatch chili peppers in the plant habitat here in the Japanese experiment module, and we do peek in at them when we can, and we've noticed that they are starting to flower. It's interesting to grow chili peppers. It's one of the more complicated things that have been grown in space, and so they do take a little longer to come to fruition. So we're really hoping that we get to try some peppers before the end of our mission.
I just can't tell you how awesome it is to see all of you, just especially the wonderful diversity of the crew. I think one of the most special parts about helping to build the International Space Station was flying with all of our partners and learning their culture and sharing food together and sharing hard work together. And so it's just wonderful to see you all there. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. I have a question, I think, for perhaps our international partners about maybe you can tell us a little bit about the science and the research you're doing, maybe something in particular that excites you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's one of the great achievements of the ISS partnership is to bring the countries together in a very visible and an effective way. And we're very happy up here. We're all part of the same crew. We get along like on a ship. Yeah, every agency, every country is bringing their own contribution to the common pot. And some of that is the science experiments. I know Aki's been busy in the Japanese module. I've been busy in the European Columbus module. Our Russian colleagues have been busy on their part of the station, but we also trade places and we take turns working on each other's experiments, which is even better, I think, because you get to dig a little bit deeper in every partner's science. Recently, I've been working on a really interesting kind of educational scientific experiment. It's called the blob. It's that crazy monocellular being that has no brain but can learn and can actually search food and solve mazes and remember how to get out, which is pretty scary if you want. It's pretty contained on the space station. Don't worry about it. It's very tiny. But so we're working on all kinds of endeavors like this, and every day, brings its lot of discoveries on the space station. That's very exciting.
Congressman Bevins.
Hey, Brian Babin here. Really great to be with you folks. Here in Mission Control, I've got the proud duty of representing Johnson Space Center, And just want to say thank you for everything you all are doing. Kind of interesting to hear about you growing some food. I've got my counterpart here, Randy Weber, as well, who always has a plastic bag full of peppers with him. And I made the mistake one time of trying one of those, and I was unable to speak for a couple of hours. So I hope you're not growing anything quite as lethal as those. But I hope everybody is healthy. You all look great. I'm real proud of you, the whole international team, and the International Space Station, of course, being managed out of my district here is a real a feather in our cap down here in Southeast Texas in the Houston area. And tell us real quickly about some of the things that you're doing to help us go forth and maybe wind up on the surface of Mars here one of these days pretty quick. Out.
Oh, actually, it's still a work in progress, but we're actually, as mundane as it sounds, we're working on a new toilet, an exploration toilet, which, by the way, if it doesn't work, you got to abandon ship. You can't spend that much time in space without a good toilet.
Good morning, guys. It's Vanessa, Center Director. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us this morning. So next up for you, we're going to have our Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee. She has a question for you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Congresswoman.
Wonderful, and I'm glad to hear Meg saying she can hear me for sure. Everybody looks good. Meg looks particularly good. She's got on pink, and I'm dressed up just to match her up this morning. I'm delighted to be here with Administrator Bill Astronaut Nelson. I think we are so lucky to have him as a new NASA administrator. And, of course, Meg, another Meg, I believe, Pam astronaut. So you're really in good hands at NASA headquarters. And Director Vanessa White, we are so excited about her new leadership here at Johnson Space Center. And, of course, Dr. Babin takes good care of this great Johnson Space Center, Randy Weber and I and Al Green. But you're looking at someone who's spent 27 years in the United States Congress. I've never deviated from being an advocate for NASA. And I served as the ranking member on the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee when they were building the space station. And I wasn't going to let it not be built. So I just want you to know that we work real hard. But I am delighted to see you. You look good. I'd like to raise the question of how, as you look at the Earth, I know you see what's going on, flooding, Hurricane Ida, fires, tornadoes on the East Coast. So who would ever believe in that? Wondering how you see the Earth and how weather research, or whether you're engaged in weather research that impacts our climate analysis, and whether there is research going on to give us even better tools at predicting weather and helping us here on Earth, because we're in some tough times. We're going to get out of it. We wish our friends in Louisiana well, and all those up the East Coast, and all of us Gulf Coast residents, because we know our time is coming. But we really count on you, so we'd like to hear how your research impacts Earth as relates to weather and climate. Thank you so very much for all you do. I'll keep fighting for you.
And thank you, ma'am, for all of your support and for the question. The International Space Station is a great platform for us to observe the Earth and the Earth's ecosystem. We do that just as individuals with our own eyes, looking out the window, and of course with cameras. Everybody enjoys looking at the Earth and looking for our favorite spots as we go around the globe. But we can't help but see, like you mentioned, the huge wildfires really around the world. We're seeing it, of course, in the United States, but they're happening all over the world. Also, the evidence evidence of the hurricanes both before and after, and flooding in lots of different places, and this evidence of climate change, all of these things that are happening more frequently. And so I think it's valuable for us to share that view that we have so that people can see, even on this global scale, that these things are happening that are impacting all of us. But in addition to that, the space station is a really great research platform. So there's lots of instruments outside the space station that are constantly taking data and can take data for years to help document these changes. And so a recent experiment that has recently concluded but was here for 5 years was called HIKO, and it takes pictures of coastal areas and can help scientists identify harmful algal blooms that might impact our water reservoirs, can also sometimes has identified oil spills and things like that that can be very impactful, of course, to the environment. So this is a great platform. There's lots of those kinds of research going on outside the International Space Station, and we inside are also here to kind of observe and give it that human view for the rest of the planet.
Okay, Congressman Weber here. Good morning to all of y'all. I'm about half a mile south of Johnson Space Center in Galveston County. My district is. About 7,000 people live in our district that works for this endeavor. We want America to be preeminent in space. So I guess I have a question about the toilet. I know you've got an experimental toilet. You don't plan to eat the chilies before you know if it works, do you?
Fortunately for us, we already do have a functioning toilet, so we have the ability to react to any culinary situation.
All right, little humor there. I will say this. I've noticed, being in Washington, D.C. these last 9 years, that it's the only place known to man where the speed of sound is faster than the speed of light. And I want to know if y'all can verify that. Do you have an experiment that you can do? Of course, in all seriousness, we would like to hear from our Russian friends what kind of experiments they're conducting.
I'm very happy to see you all, and thank you for your support. And of course, we have a lot of experiments on board and the Russian segment. Some of them devoted to the studying of human body. They are devoted to the long-time missions, and maybe they will be helpful when we will organize travel to Mars or for maybe even longer expeditions. And of course, we have a lot of Earth observing experiments. First of all, we try to find some places with fires, floodings, and try to give pictures of these places to the specialists on the ground, which maybe they can be helpful to struggle with these events and maybe save some lives even. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. So we also have another strong supporter of NASA and from Houston as well is our Congressman Al Green.
Thank you very much for your very warm introduction. And I am very excited about just seeing you in space. I had the preeminent privilege of working at NASA in Florida at Kennedy Space Center. I was there when the Saturn V was being developed, had an opportunity to go to the vehicle assembly building. It was an exciting time for me. I was a co-op student, majored in engineering in undergraduate school. And I really, really think that what you're doing is something that will benefit generations unborn, because as you and I know, there may become a time when we'll have to traverse some distance, perhaps to the stars, who knows, and you're laying the foundation for that. But my question has more to do with the grandeur of space, and when you look back on the Earth and you can see it from your perch, I assume that you have some sense of the fragility of this habitat for humanity. Can you just speak to what do you feel? How does it impact you to see the Earth from this perch, knowing that this is our home and how we must do everything that we can to protect it?
Thank you, sir, for that fantastic question and the opportunity to answer it. So for me, living on the Earth, looking up through the atmosphere, we can look up at the stars, but we have this sense that our whole existence is where we are on the planet. Being up here outside the atmosphere, looking down on it, we realize that what we think of this as this great distance to outer space, when you're standing on the ground, you're really in outer space. The Earth is like a spaceship, and you are standing on the outside of it, protected from the vacuum of space by only this thin veneer of atmosphere. And we're up here, and we've got multiple layers of metal alloy to protect us from the vacuum of space. And that, relative to the size of the Earth, the atmosphere really does look like an apple skin. It's just so thin. And so certainly I think all of us would say we feel much more protective of it after having gotten the opportunity to get a different perspective on this thin layer that is really super important to our existence.
Well, I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you, and I wish you the very best. And like all of my colleagues, I am a supporter. Look forward to continuing that effort to make sure that we get the best and the brightest in space. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all for this morning. And we just want to say we have other representatives that are here from the city of Houston, from Senator Cruz's office, everyone pulling for you guys. And I'm going to hand it back over to the administrator.
Hey guys, you really look good. You look like you've really been building those biceps and your pecs, and I mean, you're doing good. And I'm curious, I did the first stress test American stress test in space, and it was a very crude mechanism of running on a treadmill, trying to keep myself down, and you obviously have perfected this. What's the best exercise equipment for you to produce the result that we see? Miss Universe and Mr. Universes right in front of us.
Well, you're too kind, Mr. Administrator. Thank you very much. We get the chance to work out a couple hours every day, which is really amazing. About an hour of cardio and about an hour of resistive exercise or weightlifting up here. I think everybody may answer it differently. My favorite is the ARED machine, the resistive exercise device. It's really incredible, where we can do pretty much any exercise you can think of in the gym. We can pretty much do it on this machine. So I know Tomas likes doing biceps. That's what you're talking about over there. So he perfects that on that machine. Well, Megan too, of course. But and then our treadmill is probably a little more advanced than what you tested out a while ago. And then we have a stationary bike that's not so stationary, but that's how we get some cardio as well.
Well, thank you for this visit. God bless you, and we'll try to keep the program going down here. We're going back to the moon, and then we're going to Mars. Onward and upward. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Bill Nelson, Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, and members of Congress. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications. Station Houston on 2 for the crew. We were wondering if you guys wouldn't mind being a static display and backdrop for some photo ops here in the flight control room, if you wouldn't mind, just for another 30 seconds or so.
This is Mission Control Houston, and with that, the call to the crew from NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, and members of the Texas congressional delegation comes to an end. The entourage will pose for a few pictures here in the room before they press on with the rest of their agenda for this day.
Thanks, guys. You look great. If you wouldn't mind just standing by for a couple minutes and show off those biceps.
And so as the Entourage poses for a few pictures here in the flight control room. We will provide one programming note. We'll be on the air tomorrow on Friday, September 3rd at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time with our coverage of Russian spacewalk number 49 as cosmonauts Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov venture outside the Poisk module of the International Space Station to begin outfitting communications, Ethernet, and data cables between the newly arrived Nauka multipurpose laboratory module and the rest of the International Space Station for future operations. The spacewalk is scheduled to begin at around 9:35 a.m. Central, 10:35 a.m. Eastern Time, and will last about 7 hours. So we'll be back here tomorrow. Until then, thanks for joining us this morning. This is Mission Control Houston.